The Stoics said that everything needs to change, otherwise nothing new could arise. Sometimes we want to experience new things and we think about changing our environment, like the bed we sleep in, the sofa in the living room, or the kitchen. We want to change the entire decoration if possible, change homes, neighborhoods, and maybe even cities. We want to change jobs, professions. Sometimes we even wish to change our lives, but rarely do we think about changes in what we really have 100% control over, ourselves. When we change ourselves, the environment and the people around us change automatically. Just as the environment influences us, the way we decide to act and live can also influence the environment. The Stoics also said that we have control over our judgments and how we react to what happens in our lives. That is, how we think and understand each thing that happens to us and how we choose to respond to them. This video is dedicated to exploring internal changes within what we can control, that is, ourselves. And if this is the first time we meet, I want to tell you what people who watch the channel already know. This video only reached you because someone else liked it before. So help us in this chain. Be the cause of this video reaching more people. Like, leave your comment, and send it to the family group. Now, let's move on to the teachings. It is possible to restrain your arrogance, overcome pleasure and pain, elevate yourself above your ambition, and not be annoyed by stupid and ungrateful people, and even like them. These words are from the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who was the most powerful man in the world in his time, and yet wrote to himself that it was possible to control his own arrogance, to change, and to learn. I've been like this for as long as I can remember. I learned everything wrong. My parents set a bad example for me. Everyone does it. If you use these statements to justify or defend your lack of change, after this video, you won't be able to do that anymore, because these are the most common excuses or crutches that we all use and lean on to remain exactly as we are, nurturing our character flaws instead of striving every day to become better. Perhaps you have never heard or thought about it this way, but resisting change can be considered an act of arrogance. When we refuse to adapt or evolve, we are basically assuming that we already know everything we need to know, or that our current way of doing things is the best there is in the world. On the other hand, recognizing that we need to change is usually an act of humility that shows our willingness to learn and develop. It is entirely possible to control our anger, our insecurity, our ego, or our arrogance. It is possible to re-educate ourselves and abandon our financial recklessness, our unrestrained need for sweets and sugar, our daily laziness. How do you think other people manage it? Surely their parents weren't perfect. They didn't grow up in a rosy world or immune to life's problems, difficulties or temptations, vices, ego or vanity. They simply learned to deal with it, to solve their problems based on what they can control, their emotional responses. These people treated personal development as if it was solving any problem, dedicating themselves to finding solutions and advancing step by step. When you decide to change and fight for change in your life, you begin to shape your personality through effort and dedication. The "don't mess with it, it's better that way" attitude that requires no effort begins to unravel. You stop considering yourself only as harmed in situations and start to reinterpret what happens to you, and so you can respond in a new way. For example, imagine a situation where you are looking for a new job and are rejected in an interview that, in your view, was the job of your dreams. When you receive a no, you feel disappointed and completely discouraged. If you only interpret this situation as something bad, this discouragement will infect you. You will probably start to question your abilities and doubt yourself. Of course, a negative result, like rejection, is not something that makes us happy. But if we learn to see the situation from a Stoic point of view, We will only see the fact, and we can reshape our emotional response. Instead of just being consumed by discouragement and insecurity and starting to belittle ourselves, we can see this rejection as part of the path and analyze and correct the weak points in our resume and network on LinkedIn, for example, which can lead us to new opportunities. That is, we start to see the situation as it really is, and not through our panic of rejection and triggers of insecurities. And after you change your attitude, things also change. Imagine that in 2 weeks, you have the opportunity to participate in another interview and receive a yes for a job much better than the first one you were rejected from. Having changed your attitude gave you the confidence to see the situation as part of the path and move forward, and that was fundamental to actually achieve your goal of getting a new job. When we do not restrain our negative emotions, they begin to control us and influence our actions. This means that instead of changing, we use arrogance to justify our behaviors. Instead of progressing, we find comfort in our insecurities. Instead of developing self-control, we let anger respond for us and cause the worst consequences. Instead of improving, we let laziness prevail and determine when we wake up and how we do things. Instead of looking inside, we seek satisfaction in attachment to external things. What makes us strong is accepting responsibilities. And one of them is that we can control our attitudes and judgments. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, if we believe that only the things we can control are good or bad, then we have no reason to blame the gods or be angry with other people. Assuming responsibility for our personal change is understanding that we have total control over how we interpret each situation that happens to us. And this automatically prevents us from blaming life, God, inflation, the market, the dog, or the neighbor's noise, or anyone else in our life. When we take on this responsibility, the way we position ourselves in life changes, because we start to take responsibility for our actions. A backstage story tells that on the desk of the former President of the United States, Harry Truman, there was a sign with the phrase, "The buck stops here." As an American politician and president with great power, he knew he was the only one responsible for his actions, and that he could not blame anyone else for them. Likewise, in our own lives, we are like presidents of our destiny. Our power lies in the rational choices we make or fail to make during our day. We don't control everything that happens around us, but we can control how we react. We can control our attitudes, and that is enough for us to change, so that something new can really happen in our lives. True change happens when we face each day knowing that we cannot pass our responsibility on to others, that we cannot transfer responsibility for our progress or stagnation in life to other people. It all starts and ends with us. Epictetus advised his students to use counterforce in their training. He explained that our habits, whether good or bad, influence our actions. Therefore, he suggested that we use this influence to our advantage. Sometimes it can be very difficult to put Stoic teachings into practice, such as taking responsibility for the conditions in which we find ourselves, whether in our financial situation, health, physical condition, or emotional state. This happens because often we have the tendency to transfer blame to other factors. For example, some people say, "My business didn't work out because inflation skyrocketed. I don't have emotional stability because my parents never provided me with a suitable environment. I had few options, so I never managed to get ahead in life. I got into debt because since I was young, I never had good examples of how to use money." Or, "I don't have the health or body I desire because I never learned to eat healthily." However, even with inflation, many businesses started and thrived. History shows us that people who grew up in traumatic environments still managed to develop emotional stability. A striking example is Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust in Auschwitz. one of the worst Nazi concentration camps, and gifted humanity with one of the deepest books, Man's Search for Meaning, which reinforces the idea that the most important thing is not what happens to us, but how we choose to respond to these events. In all cases where we try to blame others for our situation, there are people who face the same circumstances differently and often in an inspiring way, proving that it is not just the situations that define us, but also how we react to them. Do the opposite of what you're used to, break the pattern, and interrupt the negative impulse. When you notice that a bad habit is starting to appear, try to replace it with the opposite positive behavior. The American writer Mark Twain said, "Habit is habit, and not to be flung out of the window by any man, but coaxed downstairs a step at a time." Using the power of training to improve and evolve, this approach not only helps to break negative cycles, but also promotes continuous personal development. Doing things the same way because we believe it's the only possible way can make us feel calm and comfortable. However, this constant repetition can also make us passive and without energy and will to live. In order for something new to arise, we need to be willing to change the good habits we have developed. An essential principle of Stoicism is the importance of living intentionally, focusing on the quality of each action we take. We must strive to do our best in every task and be satisfied with that effort, regardless of the result, because often we cannot control the results. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we are the only ones responsible for living our own lives and for our actions. He emphasizes that no one can do things for us with the same intention and dedication as ourselves. The process of achieving goals is as important as the final results. Sometimes we are so determined to change, to experience something new in our lives, that we want things to happen overnight. We ignore the process and focus only on the result, erasing from our minds that it is the actions of the day and how we execute them that build the result in the future. Who has never wanted or set a goal to lose 4 or 5 kilos in the first week of a diet? Or hoped that a new business would prosper? Only in big goals like winning important games or championships? He emphasizes the importance of paying attention to smaller details, such as maximum dedication in each training session, precise execution of each play, and performing well in each possession. The process is based on the idea that success comes from consistently performing small actions well, and not just from the big final results. By following this strategy, teams tend to overcome difficulties and think of success without becoming fixated on each task, allowing the sum of small successes to lead to great achievements. Furthermore, being prepared to face any challenge that arises is a natural consequence of this approach. By focusing only on the next step, we reduce distractions caused by obstacles that appear along the way. This is similar to Seneca's teaching of facing problems with tranquility and determination. Thinking in this way teaches us to value the process, improve every moment and every action we take. Among the greatest Stoic masters at that time, women, who were usually excluded from most forms of education, gathered to discuss and learn about Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, as a Roman emperor, and Seneca, as a politician, show that Stoic knowledge was open to all who wanted to learn, regardless of their social position. Therefore, Marcus Aurelius, in his Reflections, tells us that if it is possible for one person to learn something, then theoretically it is possible for everyone. If we think that when someone succeeds, there is less left for others, meaning someone took all the patience in the world and others are left living permanently irritated. This way of thinking can create feelings of resentment and frustration, besides preventing personal growth, as the person gets stuck making negative comparisons or limits themselves to believing that if someone succeeds in something, it means that someone else won't. On the other hand, the second type of person sees the success of others as a possibility. This response determines what values we want to develop in our own lives. And if you've made it this far, comment gratitude.